I'm the Managing Director of Pro Sport International, and I'm working together with the Queensland Water Ski and Wakeboard Federation. And so far, we've been delivering the regional seminars, which started up in Cairns, took in Townsville, Mackay, we missed Rockhampton, and down in Brisbane, where we've been holding day-long forums. We've then moved into the webinars for those who are unable to make the forums. And after Christmas, we will continue on with the downloading of all of the recorded webinars, plus also the various bits and pieces of volunteer positions, position descriptions, and so on and so forth, which will be available through the Queensland Water Ski and Wakeboard website. Now, the funding to present this program was secured through the Active Industry Project Fund, a special initiative issued out by the Queensland Government, and QWWF were fortunate in securing this funding. And so that is how we've come to being able to present these. And we hope that whoever's listening in and whoever's taking on board some of the information, that it can be helpful, and that we improve the sustainability and the growth of the various divisions and the disciplines within those divisions. So we'll move on, and the first piece tonight, I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional custodians across the land on which we're meeting this evening, and pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. So admin. Admin includes, but is not exclusive to, the following: communication. So communication, basically effective communication is a two-way street. It's the ability to impart information and to have that information acknowledged and acted upon, while also taking on board and acting on the thoughts and suggestions of those around us. So basically, in this day and age, there's many communication platforms available to a modern organisation, but it's how that communication is acknowledged by the members. So if you've ever done a survey and you've put it out there and the response has been very, very poor, then you'll know what I'm talking about in regards to effective communication through your members. Quite often, organisations these days are having like private WhatsApp groups or private, messenger groups and things like that. And whilst they're good for a chat as such, they're not real good for bringing new people into your particular sport or your particular organisation. So it's important that clubs are flexible and organisations are flexible in how they set themselves up with effective communication. So how they create their social media platforms and how they understand the use within each of those particular social media platforms. Just as some of the key points to acknowledge when you are talking about effective communication. So there's four basic key points, and number one is communicate everything in a simple way and often. Number two is don't use obscure wording. So don't use words with 6 syllables within them. Keep things pretty straight and clear and transparent so it's easy to understand. Sometimes lighten the mood with a cartoon attachment or something, or maybe a joke at the end or something like that, just so that you can try and keep the members' interests. And if you've got to, change the colour of an important section of a message, just so that there's a little bit more emphasis in there. So at times people will only look at messages and they'll only pick apart certain areas. So if you do highlight those particular areas, you'll probably have a better chance of getting that particular message across. Okay, so basically good communication can create a welcoming and a positive culture where members are informed, they understand the values and expected behaviour, and everyone feels safe treated fairly and included. We talked about the social media platforms. It is important that clubs keep their media platforms updated and relevant. So if you don't have someone who's maintaining your social media platforms, it's probably a priority to try and look at getting that, because obviously in this day and age, people are very much looking on the platforms to see what you're about and what you offer. So if you've got a platform that is old, it's clunky, it has the last piece of news was 2019, then it's not going to really appeal to a lot of people. Now, as a little bit of a segue to that, there's a current funding program out, Active Women and Girls program. Now, within that particular program, this is where the use of social media platforms will be of great use for those who are looking at this type of funding to get out. So the effective use of those platforms as well. So getting people who understand what they actually do, rather than giving it off to someone who doesn't really understand. And I know it's difficult, just like every other position within an organisation, to find those types of people. However, as I mentioned in an earlier webinar, there are plenty of opportunities out there as long as people think laterally in how they can source and potentially secure people who have the skills to help them. But effective communication, once again, is also hearing what your members are telling you. And I'm not too certain how many clubs would survey their members annually. I'm probably guessing it's very, very low. However, it's something that really is quite important because you want to know what your members are thinking. And quite often members, just like ordinary people, they keep their thoughts to themselves. People who go to a restaurant or whatever and they're asked to provide a survey of their meal, quite often a lot of people just go, no, I just didn't like it, so I'm not going back. So that doesn't really give any feedback to that particular business, and they wonder why they go out of business. So when you're looking at wrapping up your year and looking at your year in review, have a look at creating an annual type of survey and get that out to your members, and just get them to give you some feedback on how the year has been. How were the tournaments? How was how were the facilities? Were you aware of all of the events that happened during the year? These types of things, just so that you can get a bit of an idea, and you can pass that on to future committees to actually act upon. So obviously, getting rid of out-of-date information on your social media platforms, so cleaning it all up and, getting rid of that is also, otherwise it just gives the impression that you're disorganised and you're not really up to speed. Okay. So we've got effective communication. The other area that we're going to look at is organisation. So the key to effective administration is being organised and having everything ready to go, whether you're the secretary with the minutes, the treasurer with a financial, or the president with an announcement. Preparation and planning will ensure effective organisational administration. Okay, so basically what really needs to happen in a well-organised organisation is that there should be a good flow right from the first time someone wants to volunteer their services. on whatever committee position they may choose, or whether they're a volunteer helping out in the canteen or whatever it might be. So there should be some position descriptions, and we are working with QWWF to create these up-to-date relevant position descriptions. And during the forums that we hosted as we travelled around the state, we got those who attended to fill out their volunteer roles and position descriptions form. And what we looked at was things such as the type of person to go into a role. It's a bit like the old round peg into a round hole. If you don't have someone who is an effective administrator, then putting them in the role of the secretary, someone who's well organised, can manage their time well, is probably not suited to be within the role of the secretary. And that's, not to disparage anyone who is doing the role. It's about the type of person that you're looking to fill the role in the future. Also, it's about whether you can provide support, education and training to the person who may have some of those skills, but not all of them. Say they're well organised, but they just don't understand the role of the secretary, or they don't understand how to operate, a laptop or any of the various software, programs that may be relevant to your organisation. So providing education and training. And one of the surveys that was done was, where do you spend most of your time? And the surveys actually came back with 62% of volunteers spend most of their time in management and administration and the governance of their organisations. So you can see there that there's a bit of an anomaly in the fact that there's a lot of effort put into training, educating, accrediting those who are actually out on the water, whether that's as a participant, as a judge, as a boat driver, or whatever it might be. But the majority of the time spent within an organisation is spent actually running the organisation, managing it, yet there's very little assistance provided to those who come into these key roles. And administration is one of those where quite often people are just given the role and that's it. There's no position description for them. There's no form of succession planning set up for them. So it makes it difficult to encourage people to become volunteers within the organisation. And I guess one of the questions, if you ever ask yourself, have you ever gone to an AGM and you've done the whole changeover of the committee, yet there's no banking signatories form there to change over the banking signatories. Then, the president, he or she decides that's it, they're heading off, they're jumping in the caravan and they're heading off for their 12-month trip around Australia, and you can't contact them. And so you can't get these forms changed over. But worse than that, you can't get anyone to sign checks and those sorts of things. So it's important that when you're looking at succession planning and key effective administration, that these types of things are really just annually taken care of through a set protocol that every AGM you get to, bang, 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 you've got a set of tasks that you need to take care of, such as your rules and regulations in regards to your Office of Fair Trading return, updating and sending through to your, if you're a club or a region, sending through to your division who your new committee are and their contact details. Who's, I guess, you can ask yourself, the other question is, you've tried to contact someone to find out what's happening with that particular region, organisation, club or whatever. Contacted the last person and they said, well, I resigned 5 years ago and I haven't been involved in the club for 3 years and I don't know who to talk to. So these types of things are very key to making sure that, you know, you've got effective administration. So having these types of things all in place will help with managing your club and making sure that you're well organised. And these are the types of things that the secretary will take care of. Okay. Now, there we go. Takes a while, but he comes up. So this is our administrator or secretary. And so some of the key administrative roles that our secretary or administrator would take on. And number one is effective meeting agendas and minutes. So let's just dial down in there for a sec. And I guess administration and effective communication and being well organised, it should be that meeting agendas are out there at least 3 to 4 days ahead of your monthly meeting. If you hold monthly meetings, they should always be on the same day and they should never be during an event or after an event because that is the worst time to hold them. Meetings and that should be separate to your on-water activities and you know, should never be the two of them brought together. There's just too many conflicts involved. So keeping your minutes, but in saying that, having an effective meeting will also mean that life's going to be a lot easier, not having a 3-hour conversation where nothing's really achieved. Meetings should be quick, to the point, and actions done, and the next topic moved on to. So in regards to agendas, it's important that whoever is taking on the role of making sure that the meeting agendas are getting out there, that they have very good and very clear communication with, there could be some small project committees, it could be your grounds, someone looking after the grounds, it could be a canteen supervisor, it could be a tournament director. There are all types of small projects. It could be someone who's, you could be doing a new infrastructure improvement. So you've got a little infrastructure project committee. Yeah, sure, it could be, you know, done by the same people, but it is important that each is separated and that you deal with each independently. So, so each of these particular subcommittees or project committees, I prefer project subs, sort of a little bit derogatory, I always feel, but there should be effective communication out to these people to say, hey, just need a little report for the meeting to put into the agenda. Doesn't have to be page after page. I just need some dot points of where we're at so that the committee can action or discuss what needs to happen. And the same goes for when the meeting's over, that the minutes are sent out as quickly as possible so that action can happen. One of the things about effective administration is that, and I'm not too certain, again, how many organisations do it, but setting a time frame around, so if there's an action that needs to happen, who will be responsible for that, and the time frame that they're going to be allowed to work within to complete the task. So if there are someone who's never taken something on and it's quite a difficult task, then, you know, work out a suitable time frame around getting it done so that the club can continue to operate, move forward without having to suddenly, you know, stop because these tasks haven't been done. And you quite often get, you turn up at the next meeting and you ask, how are you going with that project? And it's, oh, look, I'm getting there, but, probably be another month, and then you get a month later down the track and sort of nothing's really happened. So it's important that if you run with these timeframes, then you can reach out to people and go, well, look, do you need some help? Do you need some assistance? Let's get together and get this sorted out. So in regarding to meeting agendas and minutes, it is important. Agendas are sent out early. Information is sent in by the due date so that, the agendas can be sent out so that those on the committee have time to look at it. And it is the responsibility of those on the committee to actually read the agenda before the meeting. It's not turn up at the meeting and then start reading it. So the onus has to be on the president to ensure that not only does the president read the agenda, but that the actual people at the committee are also up to speed with it. Because once again, if you have not done that bit of, I guess, organisation before you attend the meeting, it's only going to make the meeting drag on. Also, if you look at your agenda before the meeting, you can come back to ask questions. And this includes getting out your monthly P&L report, so your profit and loss report, so that if there are some issues, these can be, and someone has a query regarding something on the agenda, that they can come back and ask for a response so that you can try and deal with these things before you actually get to the meeting. That way then it can be raised at the meeting, the response can be put there for everyone to see, and you can move forward effectively. So that's being well organised and well drilled. I'm not saying that every club needs to follow this to the nth degree, but if every organisation can try and look to see where they can try and chop time, cut time, because time is the big hindrance to everyone. Everyone is so time poor these days, yet meetings seem to drag on forever. So making sure your meetings are very effective, that your agendas are out, your minutes are sent out, and they're used more effectively. Okay. Now, also, that deals with the correspondence inwards and outwards. Effective secretaries and administrators always have a system where they are checking emails. If it's not daily, it's at least every second day or something like that, or whatever other form that you use for your correspondence inwards and outwards. And that they're also aware of what are operational issues and what are correspondence issues that need to go to committee. So operational issues about, someone asking a question about, a reminder from OFT that they haven't received your annual return. That's an operational issue, need to get attended to. Not put it listed as a correspondence inwards item and then to be discussed at a meeting. So it's working out what is included and what's not included. So quite often organisations will put in what they rate as important and then not so important and dealt with, so that those on the committee, when they get their correspondence along with the agenda, can see, okay, the rating on each of these particular bits of correspondence, and also that members or the committee can come back and ask or query certain pieces of correspondence. Further to that, effective administration means that, and good communication and good organisation means that if an email or some form of correspondence comes in, that it's sent to the relevant person straight away. Don't sit on things thinking, well, I've got to take it to a meeting first, and then we've got to discuss it, and then we've got to agree that we send it. People need to use their discretion and go, well, look, this is an important thing that needs an answer. get it over to the president or whatever it might be, and go from there. Because there are things called flying minutes, so things can be approved and acted upon and then endorsed at your management committee meeting. And that quite often is in relation to whether an organisation is going to outlay, say they got a quote for 20 grand, but it runs out at the end of the week for something that's worth 60,000, but they've got a special deal. You got to act there and then. So flying minutes, send around, effective. Yep, majority agree, and then action it, and then endorse it at your actual committee meeting. So getting correspondence in, dealing with it, getting it out to the relevant people, and then responding back to inquiries as well. So once again, setting timeframes around that. So your correspondence should be prioritised. It should be dealt with as it's received, if needed, and the outward should be sent out as soon as possible within the regulated time frame. Okay, so one of the big areas is marketing communication to social media, and while administration is not, I guess, directly related to it, a lot of information comes in through the secretary or the administrator relating to information that needs to get out to the members. And once again, it's effective if it's dealt with there and then. Now, one of the issues that always gets raised is, well, how do I know what needs to be sent and what needs to be dealt with at a committee meeting and approved before it gets sent out? So once again, it's about taking the initiative, getting it around to the committee and going, well, look, receive this. Is this okay to post, or do we need to discuss this? It could be a good example of that is the new policy that's been endorsed by WWF, that's been sent down to the QWWF. Can be a policy about anything. And then it's been endorsed by the QWWF and sent off to the divisions for them to implement. And that policy, it could be an updated member protection policy. So therefore, it's probably not something that you would send out straight away, but you would get it out to your committee members to look at, because obviously it's something that needs some discussion, that you're happy with it, that it covers off on everything that you believe you should have covered off in your organisation. And from there, you can then get it up onto social media. Things like, it's the organisation Christmas party, that doesn't need to be discussed by the committee. That can go straight up onto social media and out to the members. A 50% off, ski boats or whatever it might be, yeah, that probably needs to go straight out and up onto your social media platforms. And by the way, there are quite a number of social media platforms these days. As they currently sort of sit, they work around Facebook is, while it's still a heavy social media influencer, it is more of a reference tool now rather than a discussion tool. So a lot of things that announcements, events, those types of things go to Facebook. Instagram is a very good tool for promoting. And it also deals with a younger age group. And of course, you've got TikTok, the advent of TikTok, which is now one of the top rated social media platforms. But within that, it's all about action, what's happening. So real time, getting things up there and that type of thing. So it's important that when you are dealing, and of course, you've got your website, which is really where all of your information is being stored. So every organisation should have a current and up-to-date website. Generally, it works under the job description of the secretary, or if you've got one, a marketing and promotion or a social media coordinator. But they sort of work hand in hand. But it is important that your website is your point of reference. It's there. That's where people can go to learn about your club. You know, your history, what you do, what you provide, where your policies are, what your rules are, your regulations, where you're located, how often you're open, those types of things, and everything else like that. And so, in regards to things like putting on your minutes and that, you should always have your minutes up there. The only thing is that obviously anything that has any legal ramifications or deals with things of an untoward nature, obviously you need to use your discretion, especially where names are mentioned and shouldn't be. So using discretion when putting your minutes up, but you know, they're always there because the minutes should always be available for members to have a look at if they so choose. Okay. So your legal and statutory requirements. So obviously we've touched on that a little bit already, but you know, good administration keeps you up to date with all of those things. So whether that's your ABN registration through to your office, fair trading, annual, and these days things are a lot easier. It's all online. But one of the issues is, and we spoke about this in the last webinar, is that succession planning. And so having access into all of these different portals, if I can make a suggestion, clubs should be starting to look at some type of succession planning in regards to handing over information. So whether that's the secretary's laptop with the passcode in there, and then all the generic email addresses of the club. We need to get away from people using their own private laptops, using their private emails for communication. Ultimately, moving forward, everything should just be based around the club. So in regards to succession planning, whether organisations choose to use a USB to hand over, but you know, if you're able to secure maybe one or two laptops, one for the secretary, one for the treasurer, and then potentially one for the president, all of the information in regards to the administration, the management, the running of the club can be kept on these particular laptops and particular pieces of hardware, and then all you have to transfer over is the password. And that then, within there, you've got all the passwords for all of your portals and everything else that you need to access so that you can keep up to date with your legal and statutory requirements. Okay, the other area of good administration is maintaining all your accreditations, your policies and your procedures. So as we move into an area now where there is so much accountability, making sure that your organisation has an up-to-date accreditation list, whether it's drivers, but it's also about those who may need blue cards. And these days, it's actually law that anyone who is working around children, those under 18, must have a blue card. And don't quote me on this, but I think it's even to the stage now, teachers used to be exempt, but they have some special type of blue card. So it's important that as an organisation, you are maintaining these up-to-date accreditations, even to the point of sending reminders out to people if you're able to, that they need to, that their accreditation whether it's coaching, whether it's blue card, whether it's whatever it is coming up. So it's a key area. And unfortunately, a lot of clubs don't do it. It's just another task. But once you've got it set up, it's easy to maintain. Policies is another area that has not been an active area, and it's one of the areas that, as organisations, you need to be more aware of. In my dealings with the various divisions, the regions, the clubs, and everything else like that, policies around how people engage and that type of thing, they're a little bit scant on the ground. And one of the things that we'll be looking at is looking at putting in place some policies that regions, divisions, and clubs and organisations can use moving forward, and obviously procedures as well. So how you do your AGMs, how you do your sign-ons, all these types of things, rules, regulations, and all of that. And just as an aside, and we'll talk about this in governance next week, and I do urge, if you are going to attend next week, I would really suggest doing it. Governance is a very, very important issue, and it's also the issue that is leading the Queensland government in their funding that they continue to provide the QWWF. So linking all of that together is very, very important. However, for tonight's discussion, just understand that procedures, policies, and that will sort of come under governance and also rules and regulations, such as I've noticed in some constitutions, people have their bylaws included in a constitution, which in actual fact is not required. A constitution, so changing a bylaw, if it's included in a constitution, means you've got to have a special general meeting. That's why bylaws are kept separate, because that way then they can be changed at a management committee meeting. And bylaws generally go around the operating of an event, or, like you can't have glass in certain areas, or parking is limited to over in the southern section, those types of things. They're bylaws. So if you're trying to change a bylaw and it's included in your constitution, you've got to have a special general meeting. Makes it extremely difficult to do. And obviously, as I mentioned earlier about when we're looking at having effective agendas and minutes, coordination of reporting by your project committees. So while they may not take official terms or things like that, it's always good to get a little bit of a, even if it's 5 dot points of what's happening in particular areas of the club by somebody who may take a particular interest in that area. It could be that, you have a canteen coordinator, been there for years, absolutely loves the position, works well with all the volunteers that help out, and they give you a report, and, in 1 month they might say, oh, well, by the way, the microwave needs replacing within the next 6 to 12 months. It's starting to break down. That way, then you can start to plan ahead and look at how you do your cash flows and your budgets, and whether there's funding grants available to cover that or whatever it is. But at least you're on the front foot. And unfortunately, organisations always seem to be on the back foot. It breaks, and then they look at getting it replaced. And so maintaining your asset register is also part of the overall administration. So that sort of takes care of our octopus and what he's been up to. So I'm just going to bring up a couple of examples of some various documents that have been created. So this is a spectator's code of conduct that I created for another organisation, and it was created back in about 2017, I think, and it's been reviewed in 19 and it was reviewed in 2021. This particular organisation has a list of all of their various policies, procedures, codes of conduct and everything else like that. And they get them reviewed every 2 years to make sure that they're up to date. But you can see there that, whether it's whatever organisation, will encourage all spectators to remember the participants, and so on, respect officials' decisions. So when we're talking about spectators' codes of conduct, this is a way of letting people know that when they come onto your particular venue or wherever it might be, if you've got a spectators' code of conduct stuck up in your amenities building or perhaps, next to your canteen entry and, various places around your venue where people can see them, then you've taken what they call reasonable steps to ensure people behave themselves in an appropriate manner. So therefore, bullying, racial vilification, any of those types of things, foul language, being drunk, those types of things, they're not acceptable within your organisation. And, and when people say, well, you can't tell me how to behave, well, actually we can, because we have a code of conduct. But codes of conduct relate across all sorts of areas, including management committee codes of conduct, on that, you act in good faith for your organisation, to coaching codes of conduct, to participant codes of conduct and officiating codes of conduct. And so as organisations develop, and because there's such a focus on governance over the next few years, these types of documents are going to be very, very important and need to start getting embedded into each of the divisions, the regions and the clubs, the affiliated clubs that are hosting events and so on and so forth. It's not about trying to create a nanny state. It's just about trying to create what is acceptable and making people aware. As well as having a spectator's code of conduct, there are things such as management committee skills audit. So once again, these are things that you can use at your succession planning, where you can ask your new committee members, okay, what sort of skills do we have as a committee? So that way then you can look at, okay, administratively, we don't really have very good fundraising skills. So what can we do about it? Because everybody's gone, do we have these skills? No. Are skills that are satisfactory? No. Rate the priority? Well, we need some fundraising to get done, so it's probably urgent. What's our action? Let's look at seeing whether we can get someone who has those skills, and let's set it for the next 3 months, and then do some type of, fundraising initiative seminar or something where you can do something and create some templates around fundraising and some ideas on that, as an example. But there's also various other things, policy making, networking and public speaking. So if you have a president who is great at chairing the meetings, keeps things on the straight and narrow, but really isn't that type of person that likes to get out there and grab the microphone and chat, then look at who else within your committee can take those roles. It doesn't, just because your constitution says that the president chairs the meeting, doesn't, in the position that the president shall chair the meeting. But what about the president shall chair the meeting and has the power to hand it to someone else because they can probably chair the meeting more efficiently than what the president can, because the president has better skills in some other area. So if you do a skills audit, you start to get a bit of an idea of where you're all at. So administratively, you can move forward a little bit better. And really, it's only a 10 to 15 minute exercise at your first meeting, And then from there, you can start to work out what you need to do to make your organisation run more efficiently. And this is just a policy that was created. So I created this for a particular organisation, and it's about social inclusion. So you can see here that within a policy, you've got your introduction, the scope of it. So there are 7 pillars of inclusion, which is the framework around providing an inclusive sport for all to enjoy. So access, how to get there and get in, attitude, how willing are you to make it happen, choice, what can you do, partnerships, who will you work with, communication, who will you tell, policy, opportunities, purpose. So the purpose is the policy is there to meet its obligations to the community, to promote your sport as a sport for all and welcomes everyone. And then you can see there that there are a couple of related policies, and that is the member protection policy and obviously the code of conducts. So these are the types of things moving forward that will become very, very important into the overall administrative structure of your organisation. And because there is so much, I guess, emphasis on this area, it's not to say that every organisation has to try and get themselves up to speed within the next 6 to 12 months. This is about creating awareness so that as organisations, you can start to look at how you're going to move into these new areas and how you can then get those across to your members, and so that you can create, I guess, a club where when people go online to have a look or come to visit, regardless of race, gender, sexual preference, religious beliefs, or whatever it might be, they're made to feel welcome, and you gain new members. So that effectively closes up for our administration webinar this evening. I do apologise for the being on mute to start off with. If you've got any questions, please shoot them through and we can certainly discuss them now. My email is up there as well. So if anybody has any queries in regards to tonight's webinar presentation, then please send me through your questions and queries, and I'll do my best to answer them. In regards to the recording, if you would like a copy of it, please also send me through an email, and I can certainly take care of that for you as well. And further to that, as I mentioned earlier, the recordings will be available in the new year. So if you remember, I remember that I attended that webinar and Andre was talking about this and this, I'll just go back and hopefully it's still there, and he can, and then I can find out, or I'll email him anyway. As I mentioned, the actual project provides for mentoring support. So it's education, training, and mentoring in management, administration, and governance. So if your particular organisation is looking for some mentoring support, then please let me know as well. That is part of the project parameters that QWWF are offering. And I'm certainly available to chat and to provide a little bit of mentoring support around maybe introducing some of these policies and procedures, and just sort of working through the start of it to ease it in if that is something that's new, but you feel that it's something that you feel your organisation has to take on board. So I can't see that there's any questions. So I'd like to thank you all for coming along tonight, and I hope that you've gotten something out of tonight, and that I hope it makes your particular organisation a little bit stronger, a little bit more sustainable, and helps to make it a little bit more enjoyable for everyone who comes along. So in saying that, thanks everyone, and please, if you do have time next Monday night, please come along to the governance webinar. It deals with quite a few issues, and I hope will provide some information and some guidance on moving forward in the areas of governance. And with that, I'll say thank you, and I'll see you all next week. Thanks, everyone.